All right, so we're back. Hopefully yesterday you had some fun asking your parents about their feelings about labor unions. We'll probably organize a Zoom meeting in the next day or two to get you guys to kind of go through together and look at the results and see the different perspectives that all of our parents may have had. Hopefully that was fun for you guys. We're going to carry on and finish up chapter 6, and next week we'll probably move on to chapter 7, which is consumerism, which is actually one of the more fun sections of this last half of social studies. In this section, we're looking at still unions, and no matter which side you fall onto the current state of unions, unions have a place historically in Canada that actually makes quite a bit of sense. There were a lot of things that were going on back in the day that really put very vulnerable sectors of the Canadian population in bad places. They had to actually set laws. Like today we look at child labor and we're like, oh, this is terrible. Oh, it's recess time. We look at child labor and we think that this is a terrible thing. It should never happen. It should never have happened. And I think we would all agree on that. But if you look into the history of working conditions, children were put into some pretty dangerous situations back in the day. Like today in Canada, this doesn't happen, but they used to have kids age of 10, 12 working in a coal mine that I wouldn't want to do as an adult. And yet these kids were forced to do work because it was what they had to do to A, support their family, and B, just kind of make a living. It was what was available to them because school wasn't really that much of a thing for kids at this stage, even in Canada. So I'm not going to spend a ton of time talking through that. When we're talking about the differences between Canadian and American, Americans are much more anti-union than Canada is, and that I hope makes sense when we think about the economically left versus economically right end of things that we've been talking about throughout. So American perspective typically is more anti-union than the Canadian perspective is on it, because we're more centrist and the Americans are more right-leaning when it comes to economic situations. Let me do that. And the whole process of creating workers' rights, if you watch any videos on YouTube about unions and the history of unions, it is not being like just this love-in, peace fest thing where people kind of joined in and unions were formed. It was bloodshed at times. It was literal fights and brawls and riots. And it was an ugly, dark time as we went in to create unions. But this ultimately, when we get back to Canada,